interviewing Ilia Alshanetsky from Senta. And Ilia, thank you for joining us.
It's good to be here.
Awesome. And can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and Senta?
Sure. So, I'm one of the PHP core developers. So I've been working on PHP as a language probably since around 2001. So it's kind of scary to think how many years it's been. And work on various parts of the language. Was a release manager for quite a few years, and contributed to other open source projects over that time. So that's kind of been my involvement in the various open source community aspects. Now, in my day job, I work at a company called Senta, which is a small Toronto-based company where we solve fairly interesting problems. Actually, a lot of it for large enterprise customers using PHP and other open source technologies, largely doing workflow management solutions to try to kind of revolutionize the world of home improvement services and help streamline the process of getting things like renovations, appliance installation, all that kind of stuff done more effectively for consumers, and create partnerships between large retailers, contractors, manufacturers, and so on. So it's kind of a very interesting space, not a space that a lot of people talk about. It's not the social media interaction space, but it is a very interesting industry, and we encounter some very unique problems that we have to think of some pretty creative solutions to solve. So it's keeping us on our toes all the time, and that's why I like it. That's why I like it, I guess.
I'm glad you're from Toronto, so that's my home base. So I'll definitely be visiting your office very soon.
Cool.
And so I know you're speaking at ConFoo. So how many years have you spoken at ConFoo, and this is your first time, or?
Well, I've spoken at ConFoo many years. In fact, if I probably try to guess the number, it would be like 9 or 10 years, and hopefully that's the right number. I've actually started speaking when it was called PHP Quebec, before they introduced other programming languages and made it a much more generic conference. And it's always been kind of an interesting experience. It's a community-organized conference. It's always had a very good kind of community spirit, and that's always why it's kind of interesting to come back and meet new people, some of the same people that you know. It's one of the probably better conferences, and for me it actually was the very first conference that I got to speak at, so it's always going to have kind of this special place in my heart when it comes to conferences, the very first one, I guess, right?
And since I guess you've been here for quite some time, and you are a superstar veteran, so can you tell us like a funny story that's with ConFoo or related to it?
Well, there's, I guess, many funny stories. I guess maybe the first one would be from the first time I actually went to ConFoo, and I was giving a talk, and it was a conference at a university, so you had the whole podium bit. I was very nervous, and I got on, and I think I was speaking like a mile a minute, literally, because I had the entire talk memorized, so it was just going like a train without pauses or whatnot. And this was actually the first, the first time they tried to record it, and they were looking to transcribe it. And I think I got a lot of emails down the line that I think it was one of the kind of worst talk to transcribe, because there were so many words just going really, really quickly. So that was kind of amusing, and looking at the video down the line, it was like, oh wow, what was I doing at the time? But
well, you've definitely improved, because you keep coming back, and that I'm pretty sure you're an amazing speaker.
They keep inviting me, so
it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And so I guess last question, since you come back so many times, what motivates you to come back to ConFoo?
Well, one of the, I think, really good things about ConFoo is that it's a very community-driven conference, and it's always nice to see the same people, a lot of new people, a lot of really people who are interested in technology, they're looking to learn. It's a very diverse group of people, especially in the last couple of years, where it's not just PHP, it's not just MySQL, it's a lot of different technologies, different programming languages, so you get to meet and see other people, so it gives you a very well-rounded view of technology, as opposed to kind of being very niche, technology conference. So, and because it's community-driven, it's there's not a lot of a specific technology or a specific company being promoted. It's very very accepting, very open, and you get some really nice conversation with people you've never met before, and you always learn something new. I don't think I've been to a conference, especially ConFoo, where you haven't learned at least 3 or 4 things that you never heard of before. Whether it's new concepts, new technologies, crazy things that are people doing that kind of makes you think in new and interesting ways. So it's
I definitely hear you. I've learned a lot in the past 3 days, actually. So shifting gears a little bit, I am from Make Web Not War, and we are aligned with Microsoft. So we're a Microsoft brand that embraces open source and things like that. So PHP has developed and kind of formed into a powerhouse platform, and Microsoft is obviously an enterprise. And so what are your thoughts on how Microsoft and PHP can work together, keeping security front and center?
So maybe it sounds like a two-part question.
Yes.
So maybe I'll start with a security thing, just
Yes.
because I kind of like to talk about security
Yes,
topics.
of course.
So I think, one of the big aspects is that because PHP itself as a language has matured quite a bit and is being used in enterprise environment quite a bit, security is something that becomes on the forefront of considerations for people working on this topic, in large part because people are using it in environments where payment processing, sensitive information is crucial, and we can't just ignore security. It's not, the, guest book, forum application, language of old. So I think the big thing to help with security is to make it easier for people to deal with security issues, and that involves a lot of it is education and making information be more readily available, whether it's blogs, community activism, whether it's people speaking at conferences, or just making information easily consumable and available, so that to make security a little bit of a simpler topic, because it is very complex, in large part because security is a never-ending cat and mouse game. The moment you think you're secure, somebody a little bit more creative, a little bit more thinking in a different fashion is going to come up with something new. So having that information available is a big piece. The other important piece is making tools that can simplify for people to identify flaws, whether it's business application flaws or security flaws within their application, through things like static analysis, black box testing. If those tools are readily available, they're easy to use, that makes it very easy for a developer who's typically overwhelmed with meeting time frames and deadlines to be able to say, okay, I can use this thing to identify common flaws and make it my application a little bit more secure, a little bit more robust. So I think having those two things in parallel would certainly make it, everybody's life a lot easier, and ultimately make applications, developed for enterprise or just in general use a lot more secure and a lot more viable.
Awesome. And the next question is a two-part question. So first off, what are your thoughts on the trends in cloud, and how has PHP, cloud, and Azure shaped what you do and with your company?
I think, cloud is a kind of a very, popular topic nowadays. But ultimately, cloud is a great tool for scalability and allows you to scale and allows you to, deploy things a lot more effectively. And PHP has always been very pragmatic, and people who usually use PHP try to be as pragmatic as possible. So it's all about solving the given problem for the customer or the end user that they're trying to accommodate. So a cloud, in many respects, allows you to eliminate a lot of the barriers involved in deployment, such as eliminating the whole administration layer and skip directly to deployment and implementation. So things like Azure and various other cloud solutions certainly make it a lot simpler to deal with the scalability issue. And PHP itself has adopted just about every cloud solution as a deployment platform, and that's something that's going to continue going and improving down the line. So that's always a good improvement. I mean, as PHP itself, I think there's a lot of libraries and a lot of tools to streamline how you can get from having an application to having an application that is running effectively on the cloud, and doing so in the easiest way possible. So I know a lot of people are now using Azure for deploying PHP. That's something that's a great diversity for the whole ecosystem, because once you narrow down to just one solution, and if the perception is that there's only AWS, that's kind of is a little scary, because there's a lot more things than that, and having alternative solutions like Azure is very good, I think, for the general ecosystems, and makes everybody more competitive, more robust, and think of new ways that they can meet developer needs and help them solve their solutions a little bit easier and a little bit more effectively.
The last question is, what are your thoughts on how Microsoft can better support open source?
So I think first of all, it's a great question, and it's a good question to have come up, because that kind of shows if Microsoft actually is listening to what the open source community is looking for. So that's already by itself is a positive point. My experience with Microsoft has been largely related to PHP, because that's the open source project I'm closely aligned with, I guess. And I would say that over the last couple of years, Microsoft has done tremendous strides in terms of participating in a community, whether it's through activism at conferences or actually spending development time to improve PHP support in Windows. And a tremendous amount of work has actually been done by Microsoft employees to make that happen. And that work had really made PHP kind of a a first-class citizen on a Windows platform, which even going back as early as 4 years ago was not the case. And that's a really great thing because a lot of people do use PHP on Windows, even if it's for the development purposes. And having PHP work well on Windows is very important because one, it gives people the choice of which platform to use. It makes their development environments a little bit more easier and straightforward. And ultimately, it gives people choice of what to do. It's not you have to use Linux or you have to use Solaris. You can choose what platform you want to use. And Windows is a very popular platform, and it's important that PHP works just as well on Windows as it works everywhere else. And that's really, I think, where Microsoft, especially in the last couple of years, deserves a lot of credit for spending a lot of time to make the changes necessary to make PHP kind of this first-class citizen on that platform. So my hope is that Microsoft continues on the same track and over the years keeps up with PHP development and keeps making sure that PHP continues to work as well as it does right now in Windows. And there are things like Windows-specific extensions in some cases where you can benefit from the Windows-specific functionality, and things that are not Windows-specific also work very well, and people have that complete choice of what to use for their development and their production environments. I think that's very important, right?
Awesome. So thank you so much for your time here with us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.